the first time Ezra saw Liam. He was 16, trembling under the fluorescent lights of Lincoln High's locker room. His skinny frame bruised from a dodgeball game turned cruel. Liam, the school's golden boy, stood among his pack of jocks, laughing as Ezra scrambled to hide his tears. That moment branded itself into Ezra's soul, a scar that throbbed every time he dared to hope for acceptance. Now, at 25, Ezra stood in the heart of New York City, the city's pulse thrumming through him as he adjusted his barista apron at Brewed Awakening. He'd fled his small town's suffocating judgment, where being openly gay was a sin whispered about in church pews. New York was supposed to be his freedom, but the past still clung to him like damp clothes. He poured latte art with precision, his hands steady despite the chaos of his thoughts. Customers came and went, their faces a blur until one voice cut through the din. Ezra. Ezra Callahan. The voice was deep, familiar, and it stopped Ezra's heart. He looked up, and there was Liam Carter, older but unmistakable, his broad shoulders filling the doorway, his blue eyes locking onto Ezra's with an intensity that felt like a punch. The same Liam who'd once laughed at his pain now stood in Ezra's sanctuary, ordering a black coffee like it was just another Tuesday. Ezra's hands shook as he poured the coffee, the steam rising like his buried anger. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice low, barely masking the tremor. Liam's smile faltered, and for a moment, Ezra saw something flicker in those eyes, guilt. Maybe, or something softer. "I live here now," Liam said, leaning against the counter. "Saw you through the window. Thought I'd say hi." "Hi." Ezra's laugh was sharp, cutting. "You think you can just walk in here after what you did?" The words spilled out before he could stop them, years of hurt unraveling in a single breath. Customers glanced over, but Ezra didn't care. Liam's face tightened, and he lowered his voice. "I was a kid, Ezra. A stupid kid. I'm not that guy anymore." Ezra wanted to believe him, but the memory of that locker room, Liam's laughter echoing as Ezra's world crumbled, held him back. He slid the coffee across the counter, their fingers brushing for a split second. The touch was electric, unwanted, and it sent Ezra's heart racing in a way that terrified him. "Take your coffee and go," he said, turning away. But Liam didn't leave. He came back the next day, and the day after that, always ordering the same black coffee, always lingering a little longer. Each visit chipped away at Ezra's defenses. Liam's presence was a paradox, infuriating yet magnetic, a reminder of pain but also of something new stirring in Ezra's chest. He hated how Liam's smile now felt warm, how his apologies seemed genuine. "I want to make it right," Liam said one evening, as the shop emptied and the city lights glowed outside. "Let me try." Ezra didn't know how to let go of the past, but Liam's persistence was relentless. One night, after closing, Liam waited outside, his breath visible in the crisp autumn air. "Walk with me," he said, not a question but a quiet plea. Against his better judgment, Ezra agreed. They wandered through Central Park, the leaves crunching underfoot, the city's noise fading into a hum. Liam talked about his own struggles, how he'd been raised in a house where weakness was a crime, how he'd buried his own truth to fit in. "I was cruel to you because I was scared," he admitted, stopping by a quiet pond. "I saw you, so open, so brave, and I envied you." Ezra's throat tightened. "You envied me. I was a punching bag." Liam's eyes softened, and he stepped closer, his voice barely a whisper. "You were stronger than I ever was." The words hung between them, heavy with possibility. Ezra's pulse raced, torn between rage and a dangerous, aching pull toward the man who'd once broken him. Their walks became a ritual, a fragile thread weaving them together. Ezra learned Liam had left their hometown too, chasing a career in graphic design, trying to outrun his own demons. He wasn't the alpha jock anymore. He was flawed, human, and trying to be better. Ezra saw it in the way Liam listened. The way he remembered small details like how Ezra loved the smell of rain or hated crowded subways. But trust was a jagged edge, and Ezra couldn't shake the fear that Liam's kindness was a trap. One evening, under a sky streaked with pink and gold, Liam stopped mid-step on a park bridge. "I'm falling for you, Ezra," he said, his voice raw. "And I know I don't deserve you, but I can't stop." Ezra froze, his heart a battlefield. He wanted to scream, to run, but Liam's gaze held him steady, vulnerable, real. For the first time, Ezra saw the boy who'd laughed at him and the man who now stood before him as one, and the collision of past and present left him dizzy. Ezra's world tilted. Liam's confession hung in the air, a spark threatening to ignite everything Ezra had kept locked away. He turned away, the park's golden hues blurring as he fought the urge to bolt. "You don't get to say that," he snapped, his voice cracking. "Not after everything." Liam didn't flinch. "I know," he said, stepping closer but keeping his distance, like he was approaching a wounded animal. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know how I feel." His honesty was disarming, and Ezra hated how it made his resolve waver. He walked away, the crunch of leaves under his boots echoing his racing thoughts. Liam didn't follow, but his presence lingered, a ghost Ezra couldn't shake. At Brood Awakening, Ezra threw himself into work, hoping the grind of coffee beans would drown out Liam's words. But every time the bell above the door chimed, his heart leapt, half expecting Liam's broad frame to fill the doorway. When Liam did show up, he was quieter, his usual confidence tempered by something softer. He'd sit at the corner table, sketching in a worn notebook, stealing glances at Ezra. One day, Ezra caught a glimpse of the sketch portrait of him, mid-laugh, his eyes bright with a joy he barely recognized. "You see me like that?" he asked, his voice barely audible. Liam closed the notebook, his cheeks flushing. "That's how I've always seen you, even when I was too cowardly to admit it." The words hit Ezra like a wave, stirring a warmth he didn't want to feel. He busied himself with cleaning, but his hands trembled. Liam was unraveling him, and Ezra didn't know if he was ready to be undone. Their fragile connection grew through stolen moments, a shared laugh over a spilled coffee, a late-night walk where Liam pointed out constellations Ezra had never noticed. But the past was a shadow that loomed larger with every step closer they took. One night, at a dimly lit jazz bar in Brooklyn, Ezra's walls cracked. The music was soft, the air thick with cigarette smoke and possibility. Liam leaned across the table, his hand brushing Ezra's. "Tell me what you need from me," he said, his voice earnest. "I'll do anything to prove I'm not that guy anymore." Ezra's chest tightened. He wanted to believe Liam, but the memory of that locker room is shame. Liam's laughter still burned. "I need time," he said finally, his voice raw. Liam nodded, his hand lingering on Ezra's for a moment longer before pulling away. The space between them felt both infinite and intimate, a paradox Ezra couldn't unravel. The city's rhythm pushed them forward. Ezra began to notice the small ways Liam showed up, bringing him a scarf when the autumn chill set in, waiting outside the shop during a rainstorm with an umbrella. Each gesture was a quiet apology, a brick laid in the foundation of something new. But trust was a fragile thing, and Ezra's heart was a battlefield of hope and fear. One night, a crisis tested their bond. Ezra's co-worker, Mia, a trans woman who'd become his closest friend, was harassed outside the shop by a group of drunk men. Ezra stepped in, his voice steady despite his fear. But the situation escalated until Liam appeared, his presence commanding. He didn't throw punches, but his words calm, firm, protective dispersed the group. Later, as they sat in the empty shop, Mia safe and shaken, Liam looked at Ezra with quiet resolve. "I'll always have your back," he said. "Yours and anyone you care about." Ezra's throat closed with emotion. For the first time, he saw Liam not as the boy who'd hurt him, but as the man who'd chosen to stand by him. Their eyes met, and the air between them crackled with unspoken promises. Ezra reached for Liam's hand, his fingers trembling but sure. The touch was a lifeline, a step towards something neither could fully name. The touch of Liam's hand was a spark that set Ezra ablaze, a heat he'd suppressed his whole life, now roaring to the surface. They stood in the quiet shop, the city's hum muted beyond the glass, and Ezra felt the weight of his past colliding with the possibility of a future. He pulled his hand back, overwhelmed, and Liam didn't push, his patience a quiet strength that both comforted and unnerved Ezra. Days turned into weeks, and their connection deepened, a dance of tentative trust and unspoken desire. They shared late-night dinners at hole-in-the-wall diners, their knees brushing under rickety tables. Liam opened up about his own struggles coming out to his conservative family, losing friends who couldn't accept him. "I was scared of who I was," he admitted one night, his voice low as they sat on a rooftop overlooking the city. "Hurting you was me hurting myself." Ezra listened, his heart aching for the boy Liam had been and the man he was becoming. But the past wasn't done with them. At a community event in the village, Ezra spotted a familiar face. Tyler, one of Liam's old jock friends from high school, now a cop with a smirk that hadn't changed. Tyler's eyes narrowed as he saw Ezra and Liam together, his words dripping with venom. "Didn't know you swung that way, Carter," he sneered. "Guess you're slumming it now." Liam's jaw tightened, but Ezra stepped forward, his voice steady. "He's not slumming. He's choosing." The crowd around them went quiet, and Liam's hand found Ezra's, a silent vow. The encounter rattled Ezra, dragging up old insecurities. He pulled away, retreating to his small apartment, where the walls felt too close. Liam showed up the next day, his eyes searching. "I'm not running from this," he said, standing in Ezra's doorway. "I'm not running from you." Ezra's resolve cracked, and he let Liam in, their conversation spilling into the night. They talked about fear, shame, and the courage it took to love in a world that didn't always love back. One evening, as snow dusted the city, Liam invited Ezra to his studio, a cluttered space filled with sketches and half-finished canvases. "I want to show you something," Liam said, pulling out a painting. It was Ezra, standing in the park, his face lit with quiet strength, the city a vibrant blur behind him. "This is how I see you," Liam said, his voice thick. "Always have." Ezra's breath caught, and before he could think, he closed the distance between them, their lips meeting in a kiss that was both fire and forgiveness. The kiss was a turning point, a surrender to the heat that had been building between them. But love, Ezra learned, wasn't a cure for pine, it was a choice to face it together. They navigated their new reality with care, balancing passion with the weight of their history. Ezra began to see Liam's strength not as dominance, but as a quiet resolve, a willingness to stand in the fire of his past mistakes. Yet, the world outside their bubble wasn't kind. A protest at a local LGBTQ center turned violent, and Ezra and Liam found themselves caught in the chaos. As bottles flew and voices screamed, Liam shielded Ezra, his body a barrier against the hate. In that moment, Ezra saw the truth. Liam wasn't just the alpha who'd once laughed at him, was the man who'd choose him, over and over, no matter the cost. The protest left bruised son Ezra's arms, on Liam's ribs, and on their fragile hope. They stumbled back to Ezra's apartment, the city's anger still ringing in their ears. As they cleaned each other's wounds, Ezra felt a shift of clarity that love wasn't just heat and heartbeats, but a commitment to carry each other's pain. "We're in this together," Liam whispered, his fingers tracing Ezra's jaw. Ezra nodded, his heart full, knowing they'd face whatever came next as one. Their love grew in the quiet moments cooking breakfast in Liam's tiny kitchen, laughing over bad movies, stealing kisses in the rain. But the world's cruelty didn't vanish. Ezra faced whispers at work, customers who sneered when they saw him with Liam. Liam dealt with his own battles, clients who questioned his lifestyle, family who still wouldn't speak to him. Yet, they held fast, their love a rebellion against a world that tried to suppress them. One spring evening, Ezra took Liam back to Central Park, to the bridge where Liam had confessed his feelings. The air was warm, the city alive with possibility. Ezra pulled out a small notebook, his hands shaking. "I wrote something for you," he said, his voice soft. He read aloud a letter about his journey, from the boy who'd been broken in that locker room to the man who'd found strength in love. "You didn't just laugh at my pain," he finished, his eyes meeting Liam's. "You helped me heal it." Liam's eyes shone with tears, and he pulled Ezra close, their foreheads touching. "I don't deserve you," he murmured, "but I'll spend my life trying to." They stood there, wrapped in each other, the city's heartbeat syncing with their own. Ezra knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Hate still lingered, and scars didn't fade overnight. But together, they were unstoppable, a love forged in fire and redemption. Years later, at a quiet ceremony in that same park, Ezra and Liam exchanged vows under the autumn leaves. Friends like Mia cheered, their faces bright with pride. Ezra looked at Liam, now his husband, and saw not the alpha who'd once laughed, but the man who'd chosen love over fear. Their story wasn't just about surviving suppression, it was about thriving in spite of it, about finding heat and heart in a world that tried to keep them cold. As they walked hand in hand into their future, Ezra felt the weight of his past lift, replaced by a warmth that was theirs alone. They'd built something unbreakable, a love that turned pain into power. And in that moment, Ezra knew they were free.